Greetings and welcome. My name is Frank Murdoch, and I'm the host of today's ASQ Lean Enterprise Division webinar. We hold these webinars once each month, and they are free to all our members. Our webinars are recorded, so previous webinars are available on the ASQ Lean Enterprise Division YouTube channel. Presenting today on the topic, Gain a Competitive Edge in Retailing Through Lean Warehousing, are Aaron Lord, Sept Contreras, and Alan Noss. Sept is a Process Improvement Operations Excellence Industrial Engineer at Michael Kors. Aaron Lord is Director of Operations Excellence at Michael Kors. And Alan Noss is Owner Consultant of Lean Quest LLC, a management consulting firm. Next month, our topic will be a practitioner's guide to leading lean, presented by Chris Hayes, who is our ASQ Lean Enterprise Division past chair. Also, coming November 1st and 2nd in Pomona, California is the Lean Practitioners Summit, which anybody in the area should consider attending. Before we start, some logistics. Everyone will be on mute, but you are free to post questions to Sept, Aaron, and Alan as you think of them. They have reserved about 10 minutes at the end of their presentation to answer your questions, and we'll take those one at a time. Without any further delay, here is Sept, Aaron, and Alan.
All right, thank you, Frank, and thank you to the ASQ Lean Enterprise Division for the opportunity to share our experience with the community. So we're talking today about creating a competitive advantage through Lean at Michael Kors. So as you guys know, and I'm sure a lot of the female audience knows about Michael Kors, we sell men's, women's, ready-to-wear accessories, watches, jewelry, among other stuff. Our DC is located in Whittier, California. It supports wholesale, retail, and e-commerce operations. Our total campus square footage is 1.3 million square feet. In peak headcount, we have over 700 people. And our units processed last fiscal year was 42 million units. So just giving you guys a little history of Michael Kors. A few years back, we actually had a smaller facility for our distribution operations. We also had 3PLs that were handling part of our online orders. But as Michael Kors became a more popular brand, the company made an investment for bigger and newer facilities, which is the one that we're currently located in Whittier. And also they made a bigger investment in automation and resources. However, we're still facing the challenge to meet the market demands. So since we had some black belts and lean practitioners in-house, we decided to become a lean organization. So lean has worked in other organizations, in other companies, so why not apply it in here? So we decided to become a lean organization, which understands customer value and focuses its key processes to continuously increase it. The ultimate goal is to provide perfect value to the customer through a perfect value creation process that has zero waste. So we had this definition of a lean organization, but we knew that with a few lean practitioners on campus wasn't enough. So we needed to have a shared vision of our lean journey that kind of aligned with the company goals. So we came up with our vision statement for our lean transformation. And it is to have a culture that continuously improves the business through fact-based decision-making by engaging employees at all levels.
Is it my turn?
It is your turn, Aaron.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. This is Aaron. First, we're going to talk about, at least my portion, our lean implementation approach. We really started with, I'm going to go back. So in order to gain commitment and understanding in the first place with prepare, really we needed to say, where are we as an organization? Are we stabilized, and do we have confidence in how we do current business to commit to a path to take us to a new place. So there was a lot of internal discussion just to get to a confidence in where we were, and then work through the gaining commitment and an understanding of what that path might look like as a lean organization. After that, what we did is we developed a train on what we call Michael Kors University training on the fundamentals of lean and lean leadership. So what is lean, how does it work, and then more importantly, how do we behave as lean leaders as we change. The next was the continuous improvement activities. What things do we need to work on to show proof of concept? And we really took the Whittier DC as our petri dish of sorts to prove out that lean can work and to also prove to the organization the value. So we started with focused continuous improvement activities within the Whittier campus. From there, we plan to expand to cross-functional groups to start to include the rest of the supply chain and the rest of the pieces of the business as people see value. Where I can say we are in this is we're well past the execute, and we're in the expand. Really, for those of you who are lean practitioners, once people see value and they see how it's important to them, they quickly grasp on and want to learn from it. So in that also we built the model, established model, stabilized, expanded the system, developed management support systems, all of that in our lean roadmap. Moving on to the next slide, I think we skipped one, there we go. Lean transformation timeline. So when I talked about the create and enabled environment, it really was ensuring that we had stability, and how we did that was at the time was a very there was a discussion at some point saying, hey, you know, lean we're probably not ready for because we have a lot to fix, and so it was really tactical and let's create stability in the operation. And once we create that stability, let's understand our capabilities. What can we do well right now, and then gain confidence from the organization in doing those things. And once we had all of that, where the current model was clicking and we had confidence and we knew what we could do and we knew what we couldn't do, then it became, okay, now that we're in this place, let's prepare for the lean journey. And the thought was at that time is that in organizations, lean can fail. One of the potential risks of lean failing is when you're really not ready for the lean journey. And we knew that there was a point where we weren't ready for it. Once we were in a place that we felt we were ready, we developed the lean roadmap, which was prepare, develop, train, implement, and sustain. So it was the idea was let's create a culture of problem solvers. Let's create an institution for talent. So how do we not only create these problem solvers for the current, but how do we create an institution that continuously generates new talent of lean leaders? And then how do we build strategic leadership? So as these people grow into their new roles, how do we create strategic lean thinking leaders as they develop in their lean paths? In that this is a slide, the transition of lean responsibilities. We use this slide both in Europe, in our finance department, and here in Whittier for the US. And it was really a visual to help people grasp how they might start to behave as we transition through the lean transformation. So keeping it very simple was the concept was, hey, look, as we start this journey, we're going to have specific subject matter experts that will be our lean leaders. And this is going to be a tandem bike. And in the beginning, those people, which included Lean Quest, are going to be the people that ride the bike. We're going to pedal, we're going to steer. You're going to ride along with us. At some point, you're going to be on the seat pedaling with us, and we start to do things together. And then from there in the design phase, we should see you on the front of the bike, and you're going to do the pedaling, you're going to do the steering, but we're going to be there with you pedaling. And slowly, as we get to the implement phase, we'll start to move off the bike. We won't pedal, we're not going to steer, but we're going to be a cheerleader. We're going to help you, and we're going to coach and mentor. And then at the end, when we get to the final phase, what it should look like for you is you're riding your own bike, you're pedaling, you're steering, and we're on the sidelines cheering you on, giving you coaching and mentoring opportunities, because at that point you're now on your own path. And we believed that model to look about 4 years, and why we said 4 was year 1 was really creating that stability before we really called it a lean transformation journey. And then the 4th year getting to what I'd call the machine running like it's supposed to, and generating new talent and generating new ideas and continuously driving process improvement throughout the organization. And from here, I believe I'm handing it off to Alan to talk about training.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. So when we talk about the lean journey here, and we talk about some of the high-level steps, some of the things that took place here. And the first, as Aaron has already touched upon a little bit, was just really training for really the entire campus. And it was focused training to build an understanding and how do you apply the lean values, capabilities, and principles. How do those get applied to your everyday activities? We had 110 people that were trained for an entire 8-hour day, 8 hours of training for the leadership, and then also 400 plus hourly associates received 4 hours of training, again, all around lean values, capabilities, and principles, and I should add in there problem solving as well. So when we talk about training, what were the goals that we really wanted to accomplish through the training? And over on the right-hand side, you see what we call the Hans Hula, for learning and application in the work site. So instead of just doing training, what we really wanted to do is we wanted to go through this cycle, so that basically the cycle says you can hear, we can hear what somebody's telling us to do. People will listen to what they're being told to do. They'll comply. If you command people to listen, they'll comply, but only when you're actually out there watching them, that's when they'll comply. What we really wanted to get through the training is the understanding of why we're actually going through the training. Why are the lean principles important? Why are the capabilities important? So that they understand the why, they understand how it can be applied on a daily basis in their work activities, whether that's an office activity or that's out on the floor actually performing the actual work. Then in the end, if they understand the why and they know how to apply it, then they can actually become the teachers and they can teach others in the same methodology. Again, tying it back to why are the capabilities important? Why are the principles important? So that's really the goals. In the end, the overarching goal was really to create a culture of problem solvers here within Michael Kors USA. And when we talk about a culture of problem solvers, we'll talk about it more in a few slides, but it's that everybody has the basic ability to improve their work a little bit each and every day. It's not getting into a massive continuous improvement event or continuous improvement workshop. It's if I understand things like the wastes and process improvement, what can I do to improve my process a little bit each and every day? So when we talk about training, basically the training focused, in this slide you see what we call the House of Lean. And at the bottom of the house, the foundation of the house, we talk about 3 foundational beliefs: customer first, respect for people, and continuous improvement. And what do we mean by that? When we talk about customer first, it's really everybody has a customer. Helping people understand that it's not the external customer that we always need to be concerned about, but it's also the internal customers. Everybody has a customer. Then we talk about respect for people. Respect for people really is our people are our most valuable asset, and we need to value them as if though they really are our most valuable asset. And then continuous improvement. We talk about continuous improvement as a foundational belief. That really means continuous improvement is part of everybody's job. Again, improving a little bit each and every day. It's not just for a group or a consultant or something like that. Everybody is part of the drive for continuous improvement. The next layer of the house really we call PIPs, People Information Process Systems. And we say you need stability in those PIPs. And the PIPs really are people. I need stability in people. They need the training, etc., tools in order to be able to perform the work that's needed. Then information. The information that's being utilized to make decisions needs to be correct. Then we talk about the processes. The processes need to be stable. They need to be documented. They need to be understood. They need to be followed. Then the last piece of stability there, we talk about systems. And systems is not just computer systems, etc. It's really the organizational system. The organizational structure needs to be in place so that clearly defined roles and responsibilities are there. So that's the second layer. Then we talk about the training focused on the principles. And the basic principles, just in time, producing just what the next process needs, when it needs it, in the quantity it needs it, and defect free. I won't get into all the little details of just in time. The second pillar, though, is build in quality. We want to try to build quality into the processes so that we don't have like an audit at the end. Then the third principle is standardized work. Standardized work means the work has been defined, the process has been defined, there's an associated time to it, the steps and work sequence are defined, and everybody's doing it the same way. Then we've got three supporting principles. Fact-based decision-making or informed decision-making, again, making decisions and changes based on facts, removing opinions away from changes. Then, very important principles, go look, go see. You can't manage a process, let alone an operation or a building, from a workstation or an office. You need to go look, go see, and understand what's actually occurring in the workplace. Then the last principle is the idea of visual management / transparency, making the work, whatever's occurring, visual to all. Hey, we said we'd be at this point by 1 p.m. Where are we at? So those are the principles. So the foundational beliefs, stability and PIPs, principles, they all support the roof of the house. And it's all customer-driven metrics. From a customer perspective, it's really all around quality, cost, and delivery. From a customer perspective, it's not to say that things like safety, morale aren't important, but from a customer perspective, that's what's really important. Quality, cost, and delivery. Highest quality, lowest cost, shortest delivery time. So that was part of the training. That was really the foundational beliefs or values and principles. And then the other piece we talked about was capabilities. And the capabilities really come from a book called The High Velocity Edge. It is written by Steven Spear, and what he really did is he studied multitudes of organizations around the world and what makes one organization in the same field or area more successful than another organization. And really, if you boil this down, you can read a lot of things about what is lean, what is not lean. This is really lean at a very basic level. And the first capability is design and operate our work to reveal problems. What that really means is our work, we need to understand if there's a problem. And that can be as simple as a plan versus an actual. So that's the first capability of a high-performing / lean organization. The second capability, once a problem is surfaced, we swarm, contain, and solve problems close in person, place, and time. We want to create a culture of problem solvers. So we want to design, operate our work to see problems. When a problem occurs, capability 2 kicks in, swarm, contain, and solve it close in person, place, and time using a structured problem-solving methodology. The third capability then, once you've gone through the first two, is accumulate and share the knowledge of how that problem was actually solved. So that could be through different buildings, different departments. It can even be worldwide. Then the fourth capability of a lean organization is really leaders coach and develop the first three capabilities. That means they need to be able to train and understand how to design and operate work to reveal problems. They need to be able to swarm and contain problems close person, place, and time. They need to make sure that the knowledge that's coming out of those problem-solving activities is actually shared across the organization. So those 4 capabilities are really key to any high-performing / lean organization. So continuing on training, we did multitudes of training. One of the big areas of focus, though, was what we call KYB, knowing your business. And knowing your business, it's really understanding your business at a macro level all the way down to a micro level and how it all rolls up to the overall goals of that organization. And it ties right back to the foundational beliefs and the principles. It sounds very basic, but when you really get into it, you find that there's a lot of gaps in knowledge. How well did I do yesterday? What should I have done? What can I do in the future? So when we talk about where does KYB fit, again, it fits across all the foundational beliefs. It supports stability in the process, stability, and it supports all the principles.
Yeah, and can I jump in and
Sure.
say, just as an organization, this is one where when we looked at our leadership in Whittier, as we went through this teaching on the know your business, we learned a lot. We learned that, hey, you know, we can muscle out and do work and feel good and service the customer. We feel like we're doing it. But when you ask people about the numbers, we really found a gap in tying together how things are measured, what's important, what does success look like versus how it feels and what they can do. So we found that the KYB was significantly important in order for us to move forward, was getting people to really understand what do they need to know and how is it measured. Sorry.
No, thanks, Aaron. So again, training, one of the big focus areas was knowing your business. There was also other training around, you know, the application of 5S in the workplace, training around how you actually run or facilitate problem-solving events. So some of the different types of training or education that took place here in the campus. The group created all sorts of posters and tabletop tents to highlight different principles, the 8 wastes, etc., that were placed in the lunchroom, placed in the walls. So there was classroom training, posters, there was hands-on simulations tying it back to principles, capabilities, and values. And then there were things actually that took place out on the floor, actually where, well, with training took place out on the floor, actually impacting a process. So all sorts of different types of training. So that was really the first step of the lean journey, developing sort of that foundation, training piece, getting people up to speed. And then the next thing really was what we call process assessments. And that's not to say these steps were completely waterfall. There was some overlap, but basically the process assessments, they tie back to that first capability, designing and operating our work to real problems. It really took a look at different areas and it evaluated those areas from how the principles and foundational beliefs were actually being applied. It was very clear that it wasn't a report card. We were looking for problems. Really, a problem is no different than an opportunity stated differently. And it was made key that we're assessing the process, not the people. Out of these process assessments, that fed prioritized action plans of what were the next steps that needed to be taken. Those next steps really became continuous improvement events. And that really supported the second capability. Swarm and contain problems close in person, place, and time. And we taught a basic what we call a 7-step problem-solving methodology. And at the basis of it really is define the problem. And we define a problem as what's the standard, what's actually happening, that gap becomes our problem. And that ties right back into the importance of KYB. If you don't understand what the standard is, Well, what do you say? Well, I should improve this. Well, improve it to what? If I don't know what's happening because I don't understand my business, how do I know what my gap really is? But going through the 7-step problem solving methodology, normally they were 5-day events. And what's really important is that it's a standardized methodology that's used. It's not one person is using a 5-step, somebody else is using a 7-step, somebody else is using 4Ds or whatever problem solving methodology there is. It's all the same, so that whoever reviews it in the end, they may come up with different countermeasures and different results, but everybody that looks at it says, whoa, yeah, we followed a standardized process. So out of the CI events came out what we call problem solving or continuous improvement report out on an A3 format. And the A3 format really is distilling down everything that took place during the event and breaking it down into the 7 steps. So what was the problem? What did we find out about the problem through data collection, data analysis? Go through a 5 whys process. What was the root cause of the problem? Then we get into plan. What are we going to do about the problem? The countermeasures, and we set targets. Then we implement and model, pilot the changes. Then we check our results, and then we look at step 6. What do we need to do to standardize and sustain the changes we put in place? And then step 7 is really conclusions and lessons learned. What other potential problems can we solve in the future? What were things that were outside of the scope of this project, etc. And what the problem solving A3 report out really does, it supports that third capability, accumulate and share knowledge. So having a 1-page report versus 90 slides in a PowerPoint deck and who knows how many Excel files, it distills everything down and it makes it really easy to accumulate and share the knowledge that was gained through the problem solving event. So those were 3 basic steps. The other thing that we put in place was called sustainment. So we put these things, we made these changes. Now, how do we actually turn it into a ratchet? How do we make sustainment of the changes real? And one of the things that came out was standard work for leaders. And this supports the 4th capability. Leaders coach and develop the first 3 capabilities in others. And a lot of times people look at standard work and standardized processes and they say, oh yeah, that's good for the person on the floor. They need to have standard work. But what a lot of organizations don't do is they don't actually implement standard work for leaders. So standard work for leaders really is designing a plan for a week, month, quarter. What am I going to do this day? Am I going to go out and observe this process? Am I going to audit this process? And it's really it's a calendar of what I'm going to do quarter by quarter. And you see an example on the right-hand side there of what standard work for leaders should look like. And again, this isn't something that should take, entire day. You're talking, checking this, maybe you can do this whole thing in 15, 20 minutes. It really becomes very binary. Either it's happening or it's not. If it's not happening, what are the countermeasures you could put in place to actually make sure that it happens next time you do the check? So another piece of sustainment, visual management. Again, this is the idea of visual management, making everything visible to all, not just to the leadership or to some key people. So here you see an example of, there's actually 2 examples. One is a 5S checkboard and another is what we call layer check act board. And the layer check act board, it really ties into leader standard or standard work for leaders. This is what should be happening. There's a little audit sheet. It either is happening, it's not happening. One of these boards would sit in an operational area, and it shows what's happening in that area. Are we hitting our metrics? What's happening safety-wise? Are there training things that we need to do to get other people up to speed on different types of material handling equipment, etc. And then the 5S board that you see there, it ties right into that. Are the areas left the way they're actually supposed to be by the previous shift or the previous day, etc. So those are some of the things, the 3 basic steps, and then some of the things that were put into place to sustain the changes that were made. And then some of the high-level results, and I won't read every one of these, but you see, like, and I'm not certain what target it's actually referring to, but if you see like shipping, baseline was 4.7 and target was 4.2, actual was 2.7, so there was a 43% reduction in whatever the metric was that was being measured. You see shipping, it was at 60.7, target was 67, they came in at 73, so they beat the target by 20%. And again, these results, this is again where KYB, knowing your business, comes into play. You can take a look at some of the others, like picking down at the bottom, baseline was 30%, target was 20, they got to 19, they reduced it by 30% overall. So that's an example of some of the results. There's a whole bunch of others, but overall the results have been very significant for Michael Kors here on the Whittier campus. So I'll turn it back to Aaron now with some reflections.
Our conclusions and lessons learned, step 7, I guess, if you will, of the presentation. So I think for every lean leader, you constantly do this, and we constantly do here, is saying, okay, what have we done so far, and what would we have done different so that we can learn from that and make different decisions in the future. Looking back on it, applying the principles and the 4 capabilities has made us a better running DC. So really keeping it simple at the end of the day, what are we really after? We're after these principles and we're after these 4 capabilities. There's a lot of other stuff in there, and we don't need people to memorize it, but if we just say this is what we're after, people understand it, and we found that it's made us better. Looking at how we operate, we're designing and operating our work to resolve problems. So at different layers of leadership, those capabilities are now coming out. It's something that sounds simple, but hard to teach is, okay, I'm working on it or improving a process. How do I ensure that this process tells me when there's something wrong? So getting the building to talk to you of sorts. We're seeing that happen, which is now allowing us to use our 7-step methodology. So we're now seeing people beginning to solve problems on their own. That culture of problem solvers is building. We're becoming a learning organization. We're becoming what I call nerds of what we do. We get excited about some problem solving. Looking back on some of the other things that maybe could have gone better or different, not sure if training was appropriately placed. So at the time we had about 900 employees on the campus. A lot of stuff going on, omni-channel operations. So it wasn't like you can go out and train everybody and then just you can go do a Kaizen for everybody and they all get the same feel. So it was in pieces. So I think that training we could we could have done it different to ensure that the training was closer to when people were going to see things happen so they could feel it. Some of the people received the training at the same time as others, but didn't really see and feel the change until much later than other people. So that's something we don't have. I don't have an answer to, but I know that we probably could have done it different. Next slide. During the initial stages of implementation, we pressed too hard when times were hard. I think that was partly me. I think in some cases we probably pushed the team and it turned into, well, this is not our thing we're being told to versus it being part of what was important to the group. We could have spent more time on training and building confidence in problem solving. So really building up before we implemented some large scale Kaizens, and I think that the team wasn't ready to be on their own yet. And looking back, we probably should have spent more time on creating competency in those problem solving behaviors and seeing them before we started to expect a different result from them. The organization is noticing the change, so people are getting excited. People ask a lot of questions, which is the good part, right? It's the petri dish proved itself, and now it's becoming a real thing, and people want to know, which is what at the end of the day we were hoping would happen. And last slide, lots of lessons learned, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Okay. So since we've already been through the journey for a few years now, we have a lot of lessons learned. So now we're being more strategic about our next steps. So we want to find organizational partners to join the journey. We want to partner with all departments. We want to partner with our different offices in New York, in Europe, in Canada. And most importantly, we want to invest our resources on developing our Lean certification program in-house. We want to reduce the gap that we have in the current development between the leaders and by using our Lean certification program. And we want to build that culture of problem solvers in the DC by continuing coaching our leaders, not only to lead by example, but to anchor the Lean principles and keep from bringing back all the old habits that we had. We want to ensure that our organization's leaders can become truly leaders that can share the knowledge and then can coach the capabilities to others. And so we know that our business is distribution. So we're making big efforts to expand the Lean methodologies to other processes such as finance, even working with our vendors and customers. We want to expand to business processes not related to moving goods. We want to expand globally. We actually had a successful training on Lean a few weeks back in Europe. And we want to align the Lean transformation timeline with Michael Kors' strategic priorities. And we want to continue supporting. We know that we started here with a small team in the Whittier DC, but we want to expand these opportunities, and we want to create the same team in the other departments and in the other divisions within the company, because we know that the support is never gonna go away. We have to continue supporting the teams and make sure that we continue building that culture in the company. And anything else wants to add in?
No. Thank you for your time. And each journey is different, a little bit different, right, for each culture. So for those of you who've been through more than one of these, the specific culture of the organization you're involved with really can impact how the journey happens. And what we discussed is really the fundamentals, which beyond any culture are the staples of a journey. And we can answer questions.
So we do have several questions, and let's take them one at a time. And one of the three of you can handle it. But for instance, what were the challenges you faced at every phase?
Can you flip back to the phase chart and I'll reference that?
Going back.
Yeah, so let's start with getting leadership commitment. So it goes back to culture specific, and I'll give the example here of how getting leadership commitment was different than maybe some organizations would experience. One more back. One more, sorry. There you go. Okay, so in that prepare phase, the gaining the commitment and the understanding, we had, because of where we were, there was that year of stabilization. And in that time, there were decisions made as a leadership that we needed a decentralized management system. And we needed that decentralized management system because we needed it to be very tactical and effective, and we needed autonomy to do that. So in that, what we did was we built a management system where you had several leaders with their own autonomy. And to change from that to where it's really kind of everybody's on the same page and we're going down one path, but then not taking away from what built the team, and that was the autonomy and the decentralized management system. Getting that alignment required several discussions with different leaders and getting them on the same page, and then getting them all to agree with each other. And that was a challenge. Once they were all there, it was easier, but it was not a what I would think of as there's someone at the top saying, hey, here's the path we're going down this. It was very much if we're going to do this, everybody needs to be committed, and the challenge was getting that everybody understanding and being committed. In the training, the fundamentals of the lean and the lean leadership, I look back on it, I think that the challenge was probably the after effect, and that was that the timing of the training for the hourly employees, I look back and say we probably should have timed it closer to when they would feel it. And also from the leader side was we probably should have focused more on ensuring that we had competency in the behaviors. So, but from the executing of the training, once we had a leadership commitment, the execution of it was easy. And then the focus, continuous improvement. I think the challenge in that was getting everybody, right? You're in the beginning, everybody wants to problem solve. So getting everybody to understand the 7 steps and not going right to problem solving. But also as a team here is keeping the scope. We were in the very beginning, it was eye-opening because all of a sudden there were probably 2 challenges. One was as we started to reveal these problems and look at the problems as a group that was used to problems were a sign of weakness. One was, oh, wow, these are problems. Why aren't we fixing all of them and trying to keep the group into, well, let's just focus on one and solve that first and get a win was one challenge. But then next was, as a group, we had a leadership style that where problems were seen as a weakness. So if I exposed a problem, the leaders tended to react as a, what are you doing? Why is that wrong? Versus, hey, let's celebrate that we found a problem and we can solve it. So changing that leadership mentality was hard in the beginning of the continuous improvement phase, and expanding across cross-functionally, which is we're well into that now. I think the challenges in the beginning were the same thing that happened in the beginning for us in the campus, and that was they heard about this new thing, want to be involved, but they didn't understand the process. And getting them to say, hey, yeah, you can't just jump in and we're going to have a Kaizen and it's going to work. You need to understand how it works. And because in the beginning, our first one, they wanted to go right to, well, the problem is this and we need to do this, right? And getting them past that and understanding the concepts and being patient, working through the process was the challenge in the beginning of expanding across cross-functionally.
Good. Thank you. If you could go to the next slide, because I think the next slide is the best place to address this next question, which is, what sort of issues did you need to solve before you said you were ready to begin to implement lean, the lean journey?
Service, right? Ensuring that at the end of the day, our customers were getting what they expected, regardless of cost. Were they getting the quality and service that they needed? And that was first, let's make sure that we're doing that every day and we're confident that we can deliver that. And so that was the first challenge, was let's just get that so that the rest of the business, as we go through these changes, are supportive because they know that we're delivering on service and quality.
Did you create any value stream maps as part of getting to know the process?
Yes, we did. We actually we started creating one back in 2017. And as we are working on different Kaizens through the journey, we actually identifying all these opportunities in our initial value stream map. And now we created a new one a few months ago, and we can see how our processes have changed and how they have improved. And we're using these every year to see our progress on our journey.
Excellent. Good. Excellent. That provides a lot of visualization in terms of how things are changing. Do you remember a specific instance where you realized that your efforts were starting to stick, starting to get traction? You may be on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
For me, it was the day that our CFO asked to have monthly calls because he wanted to be updated on how the progress was going. To me, was a signal that that it became important and people wanted to know.
I'd also add to that, one of the initial Kaizens or continuous improvement events was over in e-commerce, and it was a significant change around how the primaries are actually replenished and the processes associated to that. And coming back like a few weeks later and watching people, if they saw something wasn't where it should be, or something wasn't being performed right, the people on the floor were telling other people, hey, you actually need to do this, or this needs to happen like this. They began to see that, hey, things have really gotten a lot better. Let's maintain what we have and let's not backslide to where we were at.
Yeah,
I agree too. People are starting to ask questions, and this has been going on for a pretty good year or 2 years now. The people are asking about Kaizens. They want to know how they can start their own, and we're here to give them all the information and then the support that they need to start their own.
Yeah, when people off the floor actually start identifying and saying, well, hey, Alan, hey, Lisette, isn't that waste? Isn't that overproduction, what's happening there? Then they're starting to get it, and they're understanding it, and I think that's
what happened here.
Yeah, that's what's happened here.
Learned, what type of database are you using, or what kind of mechanism are you using?
Mechanism database for boy, that's a that's a lot of so I guess can we specific to information, we have a whole planning reporting team that we have a lot of big data, so data access is kind of all over the place for us. There's a lot of it, and we have immediate access to it because we have the way that we structured the team is we structured it rather than just a team focused on the lean transformation. We looked at it from an operational excellence standpoint. So part of that was ensuring that we have the skills and the information available so that we can make good decisions, see things the way that we need them as we go along this journey.
As you roll this out to the larger organization, I'm expanding on the question. So David asked the question. I hope, David, I'm taking liberties with your question here, but one of the challenges is how to share the lessons that have been learned there, so that people elsewhere, even though they're running a different part of the business, can look at it and say, oh, I think that's going to work here, or let's try this, or something like that. Is sometimes people use yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so an approach is using a quality management system, right, that allows for a lot of those things within the quality umbrella, which is actually we're in the middle of working through acquiring a QMS that supports a lot of initiatives underneath the quality umbrella. Part of that is that accumulation of knowledge and sharing it and so forth.
Good. Okay. Thank you. What about the financial impact?
Good. At the end of the day, bottom line, right? That's we wouldn't be doing this if it didn't affect the bottom line, which at the end of the day should be able to impact the top line, and it's working and it's doing what you believe in the system, and then the system will deliver, and it's doing that.
Good. Mark is asking, having been through a manufacturing lean journey, it is interesting to see that they are very comparable. How did you keep the floor team from reverting to old practices?
It depends on in some cases the process changed so significantly there was no way to revert. You had to go with the new because it had changed so much. So those were probably the easier. In cases where the process didn't change and there was this ability to revert, which for all of it really becomes that sustainment mechanisms, standard work for leader, process compliance, process audits, and working through all of those quality type tools to ensure that sustainment is there. So part of our operations excellence team is process compliance, which you improve the process, update the standard operating procedures, do audits, report out, create corrective action, and so on.
And that ties into standard work for leaders, right? So.
Yes, correct.
Okay. What John is asking, what can I do to get to know my business?
Ooh, I'm gonna let Alan take that one. Alan, this is Alan's area.
So when we talk about knowing your business, and it's in the slide, but it's really what are your basic volumes? Okay, so you have your basic volumes. Let's just say it's an inbound, outbound. Then you break that down by what type of inbound work is there? Is it air shipments? Is it sea shipments? Is it LTL? Is it UPS? And the same thing for outbound. Is it go? Yeah, are you referring to just manufacturing? Are you referring to just manufacturing or?
No.
Well, even for manufacturing, there's still inbound, there's outbound. Breaking it down by the type of work, it's coming in from this supplier. This supplier sends it in this pallets. This supplier sends it in these boxes. How does it leave the building? Okay, that's really the first thing. Then, so you break it out by the types. Then what's the timing? How often does it come? Does it come every day? Does it come once a week, once a month, once a quarter? Start looking at it from that perspective. And then when you're looking at it from that perspective, sort of roll it back up a little bit. And what does a week look like? What does a month look like? Is there something heavier that occurs at the end of the month or the end of the quarter? So once you've got the volumes, what are the times? What are the performance rates associated to that? How long does it actually take to unload a container, let's say, of this type of product because it's a larger carton or a larger case? Same thing for the outbound. Well, if you're moving stuff with cages or you're moving stuff with totes versus putting it all hand stacked or pallets, what are the performance rates associated to that? So it's really taking your volumes by type for both inbound and outbound. It's taking the associated performance rates by type and beginning to roll that up. And you begin to see, well, I've got this aggregate number that's coming out of this group over here. And that will drive you that I need to dig deeper. I'm using 20 people over here and I've got one macro number, but I don't really understand what's all going into that macro number. Well, and a lot of this stuff, I tell you right now, it's not available through a system. We think everything is sitting inside a system. A lot of times it requires manual data collection and validation. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you were saying also, Ellen, is there's a go and see component to knowing your business. And you can't just do it from the workstation.
Right, and I'll say this about knowing your business. Knowing your business, there's the operational piece, but then there's also a customer piece. How well are you actually doing supporting the requirements of your customer? And go look, go see really sort of there's an overarch, and everything else is underneath go look, go see. No matter what you're doing, go look, go see is part of it. Even if it's, let's say, some kind of back office process that's maybe really not physically visible. It's all going from one server to another server, website to website. Well, you could still bring up screens and walk through the process. So go look, go see. Yeah, it's part of knowing your business, so you understand what you're actually trying to measure, should be measuring. But go look, go see is really one of those principles that it ties back to the overall, any kind of lean implementation or lean process.
Right. Okay, last question. Do you have any tips for retaining the senior management's attention and supporting lean after their initial buy-in as they get pulled into other business urgencies or priorities?
Gain commitment to some sort of cadence of review. What I've found useful is, and this seems to be typical, is that they need time to remind. So I find those opportunities to remind that, hey, here's our success. Hey, here's what's working. Hey, here's where I need help. And just getting them to get to just, even if it's once a quarter, once a month, whatever it is, some sort of cadence for you to talk about the wins and to talk about where you might need their help. And if they understand those two things, typically they tend to stay engaged.
And it really ties back, Frank, into, at least partially, it ties back into Layered Check Act and standard work for leaders. Just because you're a vice president doesn't mean that you're not part of that process. So it may just be on a quarterly basis, but even as a VP, you go out and you audit the process. Because when people on the floor see the vice president out there auditing the process, and that's part of their leader standard work, all of a sudden, wow, it's important because so-and-so's out here actually taking a look at what I'm doing. And then there's other things like, quarterly conferences where you have different groups present out on the continuous improvement events they went through. Leaders provide feedback on, hey, did you follow the process? Did you think about this? Keeping them engaged.
Good. Well, we're just about out of time, so I want to thank Lisette, Aaron, and Alan for taking their time out to share with us some very important and interesting information that can be applied. I hope everybody sees this can be applied to any business organization and share their real-time application and experience that they've gained at Michael Kors. Thus the topic, gain a competitive edge in retailing through lean warehousing. As I said earlier, Aaron and Alan's presentation is now being recorded and will be posted to the ASQ Lean Division YouTube channel later this week. I want to remind everybody also that on October 10th at 1:30 Eastern, 10:30 Pacific time, Chris Hayes will be presenting our next webinar, Practitioner's Guide to Leading Lean. And don't forget, on November 1st and 2nd in Pomona, California, we've got the Practitioner Summit coming up where there's going to be a day of tours. Michael Kors is one of the tours that are planned, along with Hayward Pools, Pomona Valley Hospital, and Gideon. Day 2, we'll have 4 workshops on the practical application of lean through Gemba walks, lean and supply chain, Toyota Kata, and lean leadership. Thanks to everyone for participating in today's webinar, and have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.